Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Katie.
and you're listening to The List, where we are continuing our top 100 countdown of the greatest films of all time to let you know whether they're bucket list worthy or chuck it list worthy. And today we are going over Shane from 1953, directed by
Shane!
George Stevens.
Shane!
You sound just
Come
like him.
back, Shane!
You should have been that little boy in the movie.
I don't think I'm that annoying.
Your voices sound exactly the same.
Shane! It's in my nightmares every night now. Come back, Shane!
That would be the craziest, scary, nightmare haunting voice that a person could hear, I feel like.
Run!
Even though it wasn't in the movie at all.
Imagine that's your wake up alarm in the morning. Shane! Get up, Shane!
Wow.
You'd be up so fast. Shut up! I'm awake.
You would break your alarm very quickly, I feel like. Well, let's jump into it. I got a little summary. Okay.
Summarize.
Shane is a weary gunfighter in the 1880s Wyoming who begins to envision a quieter life after befriending a homestead family with a young son who idolizes him. But a smoldering range war between the homesteaders and cattle ranchers threatens to force him to take action. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. That's usually my line.
Too bad. I stole it. So I got some fun facts and some unfun facts
Oh,
about the
dear.
movie.
Let's hear them. I'll decide which ones are fun facts and which ones are unfun.
Fun fact number 1 is Shane was nominated for 6 Academy Awards.
Fun. That's fun fact.
Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Little Joey.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good job, Joey.
Also, another Best Supporting Actor nomination was Jack Palance, who played Jack Wilson, the bad gunfighter. Best Director, Best Writing and Screenplay, and the winner of an Academy Award for Best Cinematography in Color. So that's our fast fact number 1.
Let's go.
Fact number 2. Brandon D. Wild, the actor who played Little Joey,
Slay.
was born into an acting family and was the first
nepotism
child.
Got him that part. What a surprise.
No, I don't think so. He was the first child actor to win a Donaldson Award, which is a very prestigious theater award for when he worked in Broadway as a 9-year-old child.
Wonderful. Good for him.
In the play The Member of the Wedding. His acting career continued into late adulthood when, tragically, he was killed in a car wreck where he was the driver of a camper van, and I guess the ground was really wet, and they think that he lost control of the vehicle, slammed into a construction truck that was putting up railings on the side of the wall, on the side of the road, and flipped his van, and he was killed.
Wow. Why would you let me go on and on about the way that little boy said Shane and roast him? And then you're going to tell me that tragic story. I feel like this is, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel a little set up.
I mean, that's all on you. You should probably not judge so harshly.
Like a little bit it's on you. I feel a little bit like you could have said, hey, pause.
Fact number 3. I'll let you decide whether it's fun or not fun.
Great. I'm on a roll, so.
Alan Ladd, he was the actor who played Shane, at the age of 5, accidentally burned down his home.
Oh, no.
Playing with matches.
So he's the reason our parents always tell us not to play with matches. It's him.
Probably, but check this out. He and his widowed mother moved to Oklahoma City, where she remarried, but then the family had to relocate to California due to the American Dust Bowl.
No way.
So that ties in our Grapes of Wrath story. He
That's
was
really-
one of those people.
That's crazy.
And supposedly he was like super malnourished. They called him tiny. And, but eventually kind of, got nourished again and
Yeah.
Started training for the Olympics to be a runner. And
Really?
had to stop because of an injury. And then eventually later on in his life, he got into broadcast radio.
That's crazy.
And ended up meeting a talent agent and got into some movies. And Shane is really what kind of launched his career.
None of which would have happened if he hadn't played with matches. So maybe our parents were wrong.
Warning, do not play with matches.
I mean, I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying it worked out for him. If any children are listening, number one, where are your parents? Number two, I didn't say it was okay to play with matches. I just said sometimes you end up a famous actor after you do. That's all I'm saying.
Well, those are all the fast facts I had. Some fun, some not fun.
Some a combination. Not fun that your house burned down. Fun that you ended up an actor.
Fun that it tied into our previous
last
movie.
That is really cool, actually.
Really
that's really
crazy.
Neat. Yeah. And you could kind of tell he was a runner. He had a runner's physique, which almost I liked about this movie, that he wasn't like a big muscly Mr. Muscle man. I liked that he was just like, normal guy.
Slim, athletic.
Yeah.
Not super big and brawly.
Yeah, I liked that.
Western
made it more realistic.
Star. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Tell me about the story. What did you think?
Well, it's a touching story. Any kind of story that has an underdog that you're rooting for, and that's what this movie is. It's about homesteaders who found their place in Wyoming, but before they were there was this like group of people who didn't want anyone else to homestead there, right? And so the Starrett family found their place in Wyoming, claimed their land, built their home, and then were challenged by the people who lived there before, tortured by them, really. So you're rooting for them from the beginning. Any kind of story that has an underdog, you're going to root for the underdog. And then this big bad Shane comes along, and he's kind of what they need. He's willing to stand up to these people and is a marksman and great with guns and has such good character that even the little kid recognizes it in him immediately and is kind of enamored with him. I think kids are such good judges of character, and they kind of can know when there's something off about somebody. So it was kind of telling that the son loved him so much. So at its heart, it was a very good story. I thought it was too long, even though I know it needed a lot of setup in the beginning for you to understand the story. I wish there would have been some ways to cut it. But overall, it's just a heartwarming story about a guy coming in and saving the town and helping the underdogs find their place and not being run off. And so I'd give it 7 probably.
Okay. Yeah, I was really kind of confused at this movie to begin with. And now that I've had some time to kind of think it over, I actually appreciate it a lot more now than when I was watching it.
Okay, tell me why.
Just because I was like, this is kind of like a strange movie to put in the top 100. Mm-hmm. It's really just kind of a typical Western plot. A group of people who can't really defend themselves is in need of a hero, and one kind of shows up out of the blue, right? Is Shane. But then I started thinking about it more, and there's a lot of really nice themes that this film tackles. I think it tackles themes of honor, courage, sacrifice, friendship, and even love. and a little bit of duty and redemption along with it. So
Yeah.
this very simple, typical plot is made more complex and gives a beautiful depth by these complex topics that it kind of covers there. And I think it's kind of contrasted nicely with the, I guess not childlike, because he is a child, but the childish innocence of Joey, the little 9-year-old, with the more complex character of Shane.
Mm-hmm.
Because Shane just kind of appears out of the blue. He's a loner. We see him jump anytime there's anything that sounds like a gun going
Yeah.
off. And it's not really said whether he was a bad man or a good one, but we know he's a man of action and of violence. And there's something about this family that makes him want to give up that lifestyle and really kind of puts his guns away, right? And live a simpler, happier life, but then is kind of pushed back into that world that he doesn't really want to go into. And so I think all those little themes make this story a lot more complex than it is on the surface. And so after thinking about it more, I think I'm probably going to rate it a little bit higher than you, higher than a 7.5, even though it's very simple. There's a lot of complexity and depth to this story that I didn't realize until I really sat down and started thinking about it. And so for me, I think probably going to move it up to about maybe 7.7.
I did want to say on the subject of story, I really liked the love in this story between the husband and the wife. I thought it was a really deep, comfortable kind of love. When you're first married and like first into love, like I think there's this maybe immediate reaction of like, you better never love anybody else and you better never get married again if I die or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like young love. Do you know what I mean? But when you get older and as you're married longer, I think your love kind of matures. And I liked seeing that in this movie where the husband's kind of like, if anything happens to me, I know you're going to be taken care of. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just like a deep love that you have for somebody where you start to love them more than yourself, like beyond yourself. And you're like, if anything happens to me, what I want for you is happiness, no matter what. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a deep, mature kind of love to be able to put them before yourself and say, I just want you to be happy and taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the subjects it tackles briefly, not in depth, but
Yeah.
that love and then also just building something together
Oh,
and willing to
yeah.
put your life on the line for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the story, like I said, more beautiful because
Yeah.
it gives depth to it. And you can kind of connect with the characters, why they're willing to put up with all that they do to preserve what they had, what they made.
Yeah. And I think it also makes you think like there were other people there besides the Starrets who were being tortured by these guys who wanted them all off the land. And some of them, their answer for that was just to leave. But I didn't think any less of them for it. I was like, yeah, I would probably want to leave too. Like, is it really worth fighting for? And I think that's something that everybody in this movie had to decide. Do I want to stay here? Do I want to fight for this? Or do I want to just pick up and leave? And I don't think there was a bad option. I don't think either answer was the answer. But it was interesting to watch them decide what they wanted to do and if their land was worth fighting for or if they valued their safety and peace more. And yeah, it was a good story.
What about the acting?
The acting was good. There
Was it?
it was good. It was not great to me. Um
That's where I was kind of thrown off. I was like, the
yeah.
acting is like there's it in a lot of parts. It almost felt cheesy,
Yeah.
like
It was a
really
cheesy
corny
movie. It was a
in
cheesy
spots.
movie.
But then like once it got to the main turning point in the film, like for some reason, like I got really emotional.
Yeah.
Like I really was rooting for these people and cared about what happened to them, even though like the lead up to it was really kind of cheesy in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And it was for a lot of reasons, because some of the acting was with the little kid actors are
Shame.
tough. And he did a really good
He
job.
did
I
do a
felt like
good job as a kid.
he
Yeah.
he is the embodiment of innocence.
Yeah.
And although he was a little stage acting,
Well, he was on Broadway apparently, so it makes
well,
sense.
true. He was still, there was something so endearing about him that
Yeah.
like you couldn't help but like just be like, oh, this is a cute kid.
Yeah.
And the relationship that they built between him and Shane was just one of I don't even know how to, it's just a beautiful relationship
Yeah.
that they developed between the two.
But do you know what it was
A
giving?
child and his hero.
Yeah. Do you know what it was giving though? It was giving Little House on the Prairie. That's the vibe it gave to me in the beginning. Super cheesy Little House on the Prairie. And then it kind of developed into a little bit more.
I have a confession. I've never seen a single episode of Little House on the Prairie.
I've never like actively watched Little House on the Prairie, but it's been in the background of life occasionally. But I think you still know what I mean, right? Even having never watched it, or no?
I think I know what you mean, but I don't know
It just was
if I
a
know what you mean.
little
Full House?
Full Housey, or a better one is probably Seventh Heaven-y. Like, I don't know. There's just something about it that was just a little cheesy in the beginning. And then it developed into something more with more substance. So,
And I'll tell you the other thing that really threw me off.
no, I'm saving that for choreography.
Well, that's part of the acting.
Okay, go for it then.
And that's what we're talking about, right?
Go for it.
They really should have choreographed some fights.
Yeah.
Because
I meant cinematography, but yeah.
Especially the beginning two fights,
Yeah.
I thought they were
so
really
bad.
corny.
They were so bad.
And it really interrupted my suspension of disbelief to see some of the punches and the falls.
It was categorically the worst fighting I have ever seen in a movie. Bad.
It was pretty bad.
No. It was the worst I have ever seen.
I don't know if it's the worst, but I can't think of another one off the top of my head that was just as bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was the other thing that kind of really threw me off and confused me about this film, because I was like, man, there's so many good things about this, but like this is kind of strange. And it is what it is, though. I'll tell you who I think was really great.
Who's that?
I thought the best actor was Van Heflin. Joe Starrett.
Yeah, the dad.
Who was the dad.
Yeah.
I thought
he had a lot of complicated feelings to get across. He did it well.
He was so good in just his friendship with Shane, his responsibility as a dad, his role as a husband. I thought he was excellent. He was the most believable character to me from all of those. Shane was still pretty good too. He's a complex character. He's a little quiet, so we didn't get to really see into his personal, thoughts. But some of the looks and body language that he gives off conveyed a lot of his message for him.
Yeah.
So I thought he was great. And then Jack Wilson, who was
the one who played the bad gunman.
Gunslinger.
He was very good. Yeah.
Jack Palance.
I did think Van Heflin was great. I thought he got a lot of emotion across, especially when he finally decided he wanted to fight for his family and for his land. There's a really emotional scene after that where his wife is fighting with him and is like, no, let's just leave. Like we can just leave. And he's like, and what? Have my son believe me to be a coward for the rest of my life? My son's going to think I'm a coward who won't fight for him for the rest of my life. That's how you want me to live. And she's like, I just want you to live. And I get both sides of that. as a wife, I'd be the same way. Like, what is there worth, like, losing your life over? But it was such a valid thing to fight for that I was on his side too. I got it. And he really made me believe what he was feeling and really had me in his corner.
I think that's why westerns grab men's attention more than women's,
Yeah.
because it's all about concepts like that maybe don't seem important to a lot of people, but to a lot of men, without your honor, what do you have?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a theme in a lot of Western movies, and so that's probably why more men watch Westerns than women.
I see.
Not that
I
women
won't,
don't have honor and don't
no,
think
no, but I
honor
think
is important, but
my honor is more focused in on the happiness and safety of the people directly in my family. And we've had this discussion before where you've talked about how you'd fight for your country. Like, you, even having a family, you would fight for your country. And in my mind, it's like, no, I would do whatever I had to do to keep my family safe and stay with them. Like, I think it's just like the perspective is different somehow.
it's
Do you know
different.
what I mean?
It's different duties and how we
Yeah.
approach that duty. And I think his approach, Van Heflin's approach, was, had to think about both, right? And so there's some
Yeah.
sacrifice that goes along with that, and then there's some responsibility that goes along with that too. And so it's a delicate balance,
Right.
and you have to choose which one is more important.
And to him, it was worth laying his life down for. Like, there was no choice.
Absolutely.
I get it.
If I had to score the acting, though, I'm probably 6.8.
I'm going 6 was my decision. I think it's a 6.
Yeah, it's a little, like I said, it's just corny. It's kind of weird. It throws you off.
Something's off about it. And that choreography, man, that is genuinely just the worst fighting I've ever seen.
I feel like it got better as the fighting progressed, but there was some really
I have something I do want to say. Yeah. Also with the acting, when everybody's fighting in the bar and the bartender's like, men, stop it, men. I was
it's more
dying.
Like, men, stop it, men.
Men.
Please.
Men.
I'm going to get angry.
Men.
Enough.
Shane.
So all those just brought it down for me.
Yeah.
There was just little details that just dragged it down. Otherwise, I think this could be remade nowadays with just like an all-star cast, and it would like blow people's minds.
I just wonder if that's some of the appeal to some people, though. If the appeal of it is the corny fights and
I said, even though it was so corny and the acting was not like, it's not the Green Mile.
Yeah.
I was attached emotionally still.
Okay, so in writing, I just want to share this because you've hit on something that writers take their entire career to get to. And it's that you can share the best written story technically. It can be a perfectly written story. It can follow the exact beats of what a story needs to follow, the rise and the fall, the hero's journey, whatever. But if it does not emotionally grab someone, no one will care about your book. No one. And on the other hand, let's flip back to Twilight from last week. Why did Twilight grab so many millions of people? It's because they attached to the character in the story. They had an emotional attachment to the main character and they wanted to know what happened to her. And so no matter the medium, whatever kind of story you're telling, you may have mediocre acting and mediocre cinematography, but if you have a story that resonates with someone, you're golden. They're going to excuse most other things. They're going to go, yeah, that was cheesy. Yeah, the acting wasn't great, but boy, I really loved seeing them fight for their land. And I felt something inside of me about them going after their honor and defending themselves. And that's all you have to do. You can be mediocre in the rest, but you gotta get it on the emotional arc.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think they did.
you're right. The weak point in this movie is the acting, but everything else is good enough to pull it up.
Yeah.
What about cinematography?
Well, the setting was incredible. It was beautiful.
So it was filmed with the Grand Tetons in the back, right? They built the set completely from scratch.
Yeah.
Out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming.
I believe it because it was stunning.
It is absolutely stunning backdrop for a Western.
Almost so amazing that half the time I wasn't even paying attention to the story. I was looking at the mountains or the crystal clear river or just any of it. It was so beautiful.
The lighting and the color in this movie are also fantastic.
Yeah.
We
watched in color,
100% agree that this film deserved an Academy Award for cinematography.
Yeah, it was beautiful. The cinematography's a 9.5 for me, just because of what they captured. Yeah. I mean, filming on location like that is hard. It's hard because you're dependent on natural lighting and the weather, and everything has to cooperate. And it did. Like, I don't know how long it took them to film it, but it was worth every moment because that was breathtaking.
Yeah, great cinematography. And even some of the little camera angle tricks, how they, would see down into the town. Even one of the fight scenes, even though it was a corny fight scene, there's, the horses going crazy and all this stuff in the back. And there was a few other little things there that really set it apart. And I think we're probably pretty groundbreaking and artsy for that time.
It's very immersive.
It was. It really was. So I thought that was great. 9.5. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
What is the wow factor for you in this film?
The location. The location is a wow factor for me. Maybe a little bit just the heart of the story, but not so much. I think it's just the location for me is the wow factor here. And it's, even though I give the cinematography a 9.5, I would say the wow factor for me is more like a 7.5, which may not make sense. But as far as cinematography goes, it was doing what it was supposed to be doing and more. Do you know what I mean? It went above and beyond cinematography wise. But when you bring it into the wow factor, I've been much more wowed in other movies by other things. And so while the setting and the cinematography is what wowed me, it did not overtly wow me, I guess. It didn't do as much as other movies have done in other things. So it's a 7.5 for me.
Didn't wow your wow.
It didn't. I was not wowie wowed, which is a 10.
Just wowed.
Yeah.
Wow factor for me is definitely the cinematography, and then just the relationship between Shane and Joey and Big Joe. I thought that was done so nicely, and to be drawn into their relationship and actually, care about them, even though the acting was a little corny, that wowed me. I think it's still a little bit lower than some of my other wows in other movies as well. So my wow was not wowed. I'm going to leave it about maybe 7.7.
Not a wowie. I do want to say, to your point, there are not a lot of movies where you get to see pure love between men, like pure friendship between men where they just love and adore one another. There's not a lot of that. I feel like as women, we get a lot of that. We get to see women support each other and care for each other and be there for each other. You don't get that a lot with men. You don't get a lot of like adoration for one another in a friendship.
And I've been thinking about how they did that. The first way that they did that is where they go and they tackle that stump together.
Yeah.
That giant stump where they work hours trying to rip it out of the ground that neither one of them could do alone, mm-hmm. but they were able to do it together. So
it's that was a bonding moment.
That was the first part. And then just all the time that they spent with the family, and he really almost became like he was part of the family. They were
Yeah.
so close.
Right.
And then finally at the end, where he's going to go confront the cattle ranchers and the gunslinger that they had hired, and Shane will not let him go, to the point where they just have to like have a knockout brawl until one of them gives up, and Shane takes back his guns and enters back into that life to sacrifice himself and what he wants for the people that he loves.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful storytelling.
It is.
It's touching. And that is the wow factor. So I thought that was really, really great. And you're right, you don't see it in movies very often. You just get these stupid bro moments that are not really, I don't know, they don't have much heart to them. But this
or they're
did.
friends, but they fight or pick on each other or whatever. It was genuine, just pure love
And
between
respect and
adoration. I think they
absolutely
adored each other. I loved it.
Yeah. So is this a top 100 movie of all time?
I don't think so. I don't.
See, I had the same reaction when I was thinking about it earlier, but after I've, kind of thought about it and analyzed the story a little more, I think it is. I think it is a top 100, especially considering it's a Western genre. Like, you don't get very many complex Western dramas, period, let alone some in the top 100.
Yeah.
So I think it is. Is it a bucket list movie? I got to say no. Having said that, though, I really enjoyed the film, even though it had a lot of flaws. I thought it was really, really good, and I liked it a lot. Enjoyability factor for me was way up there, even though it may not have been as drama filled and as excellently fine toned as some of our other films.
Yeah. And I think ultimately the point of this is enjoyability. Like, neither one of us is a film expert. And so all of this does eventually boil down to enjoyability. And that means a lot if it felt that enjoyable to you. And, that's a big recommendation, I feel like. And I did enjoy it too, but it felt more like that was a good movie. That was a nice watch.
It's a fun
Yeah.
It's a fun action thriller.
Yeah. But
movie.
Not like this movie changed my life. You need to go watch it right now.
Right. Exactly. Let's share our...
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it needed a few too many qualifiers. Like, it was good, but like there were just a few too many things, I think, that pull it down out of the top 100 for me. And definitely it does not make my bucket list. So I'll share my screen. My list is currently Green Mile, Good Will Hunting, The Third Man, Double Indemnity, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Pulp Fiction, Wuthering Heights, Rebel Without a Cause, Rear Window, and Nashville. And this list is going to stay the same for me for the second week in a row. I'm not changing anything. I don't think Shane was any better than any of the movies I currently have on my top 10. So we'll see if that changes next week. That's what you think.
I will share mine. So I have The Green Mile's number 1. Last week I put The Grapes of Wrath as number 10. And honestly, as good as Grapes of Wrath is, I actually enjoyed Shane more than The Grapes of Wrath. So I'm going to actually move it up to my number 10 spot. And I think it's mostly because Grapes of Wrath is just so heavy and so depressing of a film that the enjoyability factor is not there for me. And though this movie is not quite on par with the acting and some of the other elements, it's more enjoyable to me. just because it's fun, it's uplifting, and I emotionally attached to the characters.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm going to move it up to my number 10. It's probably not going to stay there very long, but I think it's worth
I agree with
watching.
Your reasoning. Yeah. I feel your reasoning on that. Before we get to the spoiler part, there's only a small little bit tonight. I will say, if you guys want to follow us on Ryan and Kat's list, you're welcome to. That's us on Instagram. You can also leave us a message here on Spotify or send us a DM on Instagram, whatever you'd like to do. If you're my mom listening, you can just call me. But anybody else, use the other methods I've listed. I do want to have just a little spoiler. So spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Believe it or not, that's actually not us saying that. That's that clip created specifically for the spoiler section. It sounds like it's just us, but we're really professional here. So I did want to ask, do you think Shane died on that horse as he was riding out of town?
But yeah, I've been asking myself that question too. For those of you who've seen the film or don't mind it being spoiled, after the final gunfight where Shane basically conquers his foe, he is noticed to be bleeding by the little kid, and he kind of just shrugs it off and rides off into the distance. But as he rides off, he rides through a cemetery, which kind of gives us the feel that maybe Shane has suffered a fatal blow. And I don't know whether he truly did or not, or is this saying something different? Because he does ride off out of the cemetery into the distance. Is it saying that he kind of conquered death there and escaped again and is kind of born again?
I hope so, but I don't think so. I think he's dead.
Is it saying he kind of died and went back to his old ways of violence and to what he was before? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. And I don't know if I mind
not knowing. I like that sometimes.
I like to think that he did not die, but that he conquered death and walked away triumphantly. That's the optimist in me. But
well, I think he's dead.
But I think I could see how you could see either one as a possibility.
For sure. But that's another hallmark of a good movie, I feel like, is making you question but not making you angry.
Is he riding off?
Because you don't know?
Yeah, is he riding off just so the kid doesn't have to see his hero die?
Yeah.
I don't know.
As we were watching it, I was thinking about him being like 18 years old and suddenly going, oh, Shane's dead. And like having that realization. Like, oh my gosh. He got shot. He rode off. He's dead.
Shane.
Shane, you died.
Wow. I'm editing that snort out. Thanks everybody for joining us as we talked about 1953 Shane. I think it's worth a watch. If you like Westerns, I think this would be great for you. It's fun. Yeah. It's a fun movie.
Shane.
It's not life shattering.
I think even if you don't like Westerns, watch it if you're free, if you have the time.
Next week, we'll be looking at film number 76, Giant, starring James Dean. So tune in. We'll talk about it next time. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Ryan.
I'm Katie.
And this is The List.
Bye, Shane.